Welcome back, guys. We have an amazing show in store for you today. I'm with my buddy Ray. Coach Ray, I'm happy you're present. You really used to disappear, but we thank God. Now you're around.
Yeah, I'm happy to be back.
Karibu Manze. And we have a special guest for you guys. He said we don't introduce him as a coach, right? So, yeah.
What do I introduce myself as? My name is Kimathi Kambuthu. Those are my two names. In this context, I'm a former player. I also coach. I also run an academy called True Talents of Africa. I don't run it independently. I also run it with a team of able individuals that I hope I can represent well today.
By that definition, you've started very well.
Thank you.
Coach Ray.
Okay, so Kimathi, I think everyone thinks about coaches and nobody talks about their football. What did you play? How was your journey like as a player before maybe getting onto coaching?
Sure. It's a long story, but I started like any young player. I wanted to play professional football from around the age of 8, 9. I used to watch Thierry Henry. That was my favorite player. Dennis Bergkamp, Patrick Vieira. Those were like the guys. You know, I used to watch them on TV, and I used to think this is for me. And I played for many different academies. Specifically two main ones. One was Ligindogo, and the other one was Maisa. Maisa, at that time, the branch I was in Kahawa West. At that time, Maisa was big. I had many different branches. So those were the two academies that I played for. And I think just so people can understand how my upbringing was, I came from a family that I never worried about my meals, or I wasn't worried about school. You know, my parents took care of us in terms of what they gave us. So they were able to support us in what we wanted to do. My parents were also very open. At the same time, my parents were not around often. They were always working. And so it was just my brother and I always left alone. So we used to try and compete against each other to try and get the love and attention of our parents. So one of the ways that I did that was through football. So I found football was where I felt appreciated from people around me, because I didn't feel like I was getting that at home. And I think that's why I pushed really hard to play football, because that's where I felt like myself. When I was 15 is when I got a unique opportunity to travel to the United States. At the time, there wasn't a lot of opportunity in terms of football. I think it's the same case now. You don't know where to go, who to speak to when it comes to pursuing football as a career. So I ended up going to the US. I went for a camp. So the camp was about 2 weeks, and it was like a chow. And it was a big sacrifice for my family. But eventually they managed to get me into an academy. And I was there on my own. From 15, they came back. I stayed there, and I stayed there for 3 years. It was probably, I don't even know how to define it. It was like going from night to day. It was just completely different to what I had experienced. After those 2 years, I got a soccer scholarship to play in university. I played in university. I actually played for 3 different universities. And I also played semi-professionally in the 3rd division in the US for 4 years as well. And for me, I think that was probably the best decision I could have made in my life. I learned a lot about the world. I got to see people, meet people that I'd never thought I would ever meet. And also experience things football-wise that I never would have experienced. Football also gave me an education. When I came back in end of 2016, beginning of 2017, actually just after Trump, that's when I came home. And initially the goal was not to stay. I was supposed to move on to another country and to continue playing. But at that point, it didn't work out the way it was supposed to. I should have ideally gone back to the United States. But then at that point, I thought to myself, in the US, at that time I was playing and also coaching. And I thought to myself, the best I could do in the US is just continue to coach. And I felt like if I was there coaching those kids, I would only be giving them what they already have. Those kids they already have everything. But while I was here, I knew that there are so many talented players that they don't know where to go. They don't know how to pursue this football dream that they have. And so I thought to myself, why don't I make it possible for them to get the same opportunities that I got? And so from that time is when now I started to try and build systems and things that can help students in that way. So let me stop there before I continue with the story.
From the background checks, I think you were with the guys at African Warriors. How was it? And the transition from the US coming back, was it easy? How did you start? Did you do a coaching course? Did you maybe get someone to learn the trade from? How was it for you?
I think from my playing experience and the education that I got in the US, I knew generally how to coach because I was just replicating how I had been coached, and I had the luxury of having really good coaches, and had many, many different coaches. So when I came back, I didn't know exactly how I was going to create this thing that I wanted to create in terms of giving students opportunities. And then just by chance, there was a time when I was sharing like some thoughts about it, and then somebody from Green Sports got in touch, and then I went and I met them, and then they said, "Okay, we believe you can help us." And initially, I was open to anything because at that point, I wasn't doing anything. So over time, I became in charge of now the academy side of things, and I thought of it in a unique way that maybe most people don't think about academies. But at that point, I had enough connections on the outside world to help a student actually get, whether it's a soccer scholarship or some kind of opportunity. But I knew the way Kenya is set up, there's not much structure in terms of development. If you look at anybody who is 14, 15, how often are they training? What kind of coaching are they getting? What kind of facilities are they training on? We don't really have those structures from 14 to 18. It's usually finish high school, and then you now start having access to those kinds of things, which is not the best case. So I thought if we're going to create an academy, let's go to the schools, the high school specifically, where you have students in Form 1, students in schools who are trying to pursue this thing, but we start them early. And so we went to several different schools, eventually started an academy program that was designed to develop students in partnership with the school, and then eventually give them access to opportunities. The first cohort of students that got opportunities, it was just a friend of mine in the US who was running an agency. His name is Chris Cousins. He runs Sports Recruiting USA. And he helps students get soccer scholarships to play in the US. So I contacted him. I told him, I think there's some talented players here in Kenya. He came, he watched a few players over several days, and then 3 of them were selected. All of them ended up getting scholarships to play in the US. And that's now when it started, this whole project to try and help more students along that pathway.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think Papa always tells me football is a game for slaves. Do you think you going to get an education and coming back to coach, do you think it has a lot more opportunities for us to make money out of it?
I think we have to be realistic with our context. In a country like the US, or even in many Western countries, the sports industry is very big. You'll find a team can have, let's say, 2, 3 sports psychologists. It can have a sports nutritionist. It can have a sports scientist. It can have an analyst. It has several coaches. It has. So when you look at sports beyond when you look at football beyond just being a player, there are so many other roles you can have. You can be in marketing and be involved with a club. You can be in all in the same line of sports. But what you find when you come to Kenya is our sports industry is not as developed. Teams like, even if it's the biggest teams like Gor Mahia, AFC, Tusker, all of these teams, they don't have sports scientists, that are on staff, they don't have sports nutritionists. Those things don't exist. So when you look at somebody in terms of advising them in terms of a sports career, if you're coming into football in Kenya, you have to either create that yourself, because I don't think some of these bigger clubs are going to suddenly have those roles. Hopefully they go with time. Hopefully our industry goes with time. But my experience is that if there's a sports opportunity you want to pursue, you probably have to create it yourself.
May I ask you a question along those lines? You mentioned that you had an opportunity to go abroad and pursue education, right? I want to ask you this question from these two perspectives, or rather from the perspective of an aspiring player and maybe the donor or the sponsor. So I want to ask you, one, right now, the way I see it personally, if you want to pursue further education, or you want to go study, or you want to get out of here to play football, there are two ways you can do it. You can go for a scholarship, right? You can try get a scholarship, or you can go to a privately run academy. You can pay. From your personal experience, which one would you recommend and why?
So in terms of getting out of the country,
would you advise someone to go the scholarship route, or would you advise someone to find a way of being sponsored and go directly to a private academy like in the US or Europe? And why? Your reasons why whichever would be better.
I think it depends. It depends on the goal of the student and their family. So for example, in the US, there's so many different programs that you can go to. Some are geared more towards high-end, development. Some are geared more towards you just get an education as football is now, as you play at the same time. So I think it depends. And usually when it comes to getting a scholarship, the reality is you have to be better than what they already have for them to give you a scholarship, because there's many students around the world who can afford the fees. But for them to give you a scholarship, that means they're kind of spending money on you. And for them to spend money on you, you have to be better than the players they currently have. So you'd have to be quite good to qualify for a scholarship. So I imagine in that case, then you're actually trying to pursue football as a career. When you talk about some of these private academies, many of them are privately run, and so they don't have much scholarship money available.
That one you have to pay straight up.
Yeah, so you probably have to have some support, some financial support to go to those academies. But for some people that is better because maybe they are younger. If they're 16, 17, they still have time to develop. You have to look at what are they likely to get here in comparison to what they're likely to get there. If they're going to go abroad to a country in Europe where the facilities are going to be better than here, the training is going to be more consistent, the coaching is going to be better, then that can only accelerate their development. I always say money is just a way to make your journey shorter. If you compare one student who is 17 and another who is also 17, and one has money and the other one doesn't, they might both eventually get to the same place, but one who has financial support can actually accelerate that because they just get access to more things, whether that is connections, whether that is training, whether that is education, whatever they need with the financial resources they have, they're likely to move faster. That's only the main difference, I find.
You've answered my question very well. And the reason why I was asking it to you was, I don't know how many people know this, but for example, like Coach Ray, he's helped some guys go abroad. But this process of how to go about it exactly is very unclear. Their parents right now seated somewhere who have the resources like you mentioned, but they don't know what option. And from some of the conversations we've had with him, sometimes it's tricky. It's hard to understand which option to offer a parent, because you can have a kid who's exceptionally brilliant on the pitch, but he's not so good when it comes to books. So that parent, it's very difficult to tell them, let's pursue a scholarship option, because this guy might not be able to meet the academic obligations. So maybe we go for the academy. But then again, I'm sure from Ray's experience, there are some academies that are only out here to make money. They'll just keep your kid in Spain, it'll be like a holiday, or in Italy or whatever. But when you look at what the main reason why you took that kid there and what you spent, and I think even to where Coach Ray has gotten it to is a huge success, because there are so many stories. I'm sure you even have friends who money was invested, a lot of money behind them. And unfortunately today, nothing to show for it. And that's where my question for you was coming from.
No, I get that.
Yeah, because advice is really key. And also when you get it. Like Coach Ray can give you fantastic advice. Today he was telling me there's a guy somewhere, we won't say where because he's pursuing his options. But the guy is old. He's 32. So they're wondering where he is. They're wondering why he can't develop. Which is, as you know, the guy is 32. So chances of him improving.
Okay, they're not aware that he's 32.
Yeah,
okay.
that's why I was just asking that question.
Yeah, and also just to add on what Papa is saying. So if my daughter or son wants to go and play football on scholarship, what are the requirements? Because I get a lot of questions from players. Or do I need players in Kenya don't have footage? We have a big problem. You ask him about or her about their results, they don't have. So for you, what are the requirements for you to get a scholarship?
So let me start off by talking about locally what we need. So with True Talents of Africa, one thing that we have been trying to do is create, because you don't want to take a student somewhere and then everything is a surprise to them. They're not used to that environment. They have to already be in an environment where they're training consistently, and then when they get into this new environment, it's not a surprise to them. They know exactly. They've played league football before. They've done all these things before. That's, I think, what we also don't have enough of in our country. Some of the players you guys are talking about, if you ask them, when they were 17, 16, how often they were training, probably maybe twice, maybe 3 times in a week. So realistically, are they going to be able to compete with somebody who is, for me, when I was 15, I was training sometimes twice a day. By God's grace, I was put in an environment that could give me that. Training 6 times per week, you're in a league system, you have great facilities. So if we're both 18, it's going to be difficult for us to compete against each other. And then on top of that, you want a scholarship. It's going to be even more difficult because now you have to compete against people who've already had more exposure than you. So with TTA, we have tried to create programs that actually expose them to what it would be like if they were somewhere else. So trying to make sure they do have training 5 times a week, making sure their games are recorded, making sure they have analysis sessions, making sure they have the mental side of the game is also taken care of. They have their needs taken care of, and then they also have good coaching and good facilities to play on. And now once a player has all of those things, I don't think it would be as wise to try and introduce things like scholarships when a student hasn't been exposed to that. Because the reality is they might not be able to get a scholarship if they are not exposed to that kind of environment. And even if they were to go, which has happened actually in the past, taking students who are not prepared, and the coach says, we'll cut his scholarship and we send him back. Because it's competitive at the end of the day. So creating that environment is the first thing. When it comes to scholarships, specifically to the US or Canada, it is very difficult to explain how exactly it works because it's quite intricate. In fact, with Sports Recruiting USA, one of the things is the agency only works with students or people who have been through the student-athlete pathway before. And not otherwise. But basically how I can put it is if you've done well enough academically, so C+ and above, then you'd be eligible to play. Because if you have a C+ and below, you're not eligible to play in the 4-year universities. The second thing I would say that also we lack a lot is video. You do need to be able to demonstrate to these coaches. These are coaches who are receiving 50 emails in a day. How will they take you seriously? You need to have a video, and specifically a highlight video that demonstrates your level of ability. In addition to that, you have to have a profile that also can speak to where you have played. You can't just be training again twice per week. You have to be in an environment that is reputable, that you can send that email and somebody's going to say, okay, I understand where they have been and how often they have trained. I think those are the main things. But one of the most important things that people don't speak about enough is also the character side of things. You have to be somebody who can I mean, these are young people. They have to be able to take care of themselves. And if you are in the United States or Canada and there's so many things around you, if you don't know how to handle yourself, to carry yourself, then most likely football will be the last thing that you do.
You know, Coach Ray always tells me footballers are thieves. From his experience, you know, you go there, maybe your mom has bought you a new phone. You go up just before while you're changing. Well, you know, I've talked about the Kenyan setup. So you change all of you under the tree. Then you chuck your new Samsung Galaxy Fold. A guy now, his attention has gone completely from the pitch to, am I going to get that phone from your bag when you're not seeing? So with this in mind, I wanted to ask you just a small question. Does being a multi-sport athlete help your chances? Or if they're looking for soccer, they're only specifically looking for soccer, football, or if you can swim, play rugby, does all that come together to help you, like boost your chances?
The other sports don't matter because I mean, if I'm a coach in the US, I'm specific. The first thing when I see your email, or whether you're represented by an agency or whatever, as soon as your email comes, the first thing they look at is the video. And on that video, they're not just looking at your performance. This is also something that people get wrong. Is they're also trying to look at what league are you playing in? Are both teams kitted? Is there how many refs are
you
there?
You could just get your buddies and play shirts versus skills and record it and send it.
Exactly. And you know these people. I mean, these coaches they're not obliged to help you. So, you know, if they see something they don't like within the first 20 seconds, they just switch off the video. They won't watch it. I mean, if they're getting a video from somebody from Sweden, from Brazil, they see you juggling the ball in your back, they switch off the video. They won't.
It's not even.
So once they see, you know, they look, are there 3 refs on the pitch? You know, are there goal posts? Are there, is the pitch line?
What kind of CVs are they receiving?
You know, one thing, if you ask them, they'll tell you they get emails from Africans every single day. And you know,
bro, more importance of facility.
Yeah,
we were talking about facilities every single day. You can continue.
And the email will say something. I mean, even us, we get those same emails from maybe Ghana, Nigeria, from even here in Nairobi, by the way.
She told me sometimes you find a situation, hey man, a guy just tells his buddy. It's his buddy, not him. Then he gets to Kenya, and when you go for the actual trial, guys are like, what? Is this the same guy we saw?
It happens. It happens. So these coaches are looking for that professionalism. And now I've forgotten your original question.
Don't worry, I was just asking.
Oh, the multi-sport. Okay. So that is their basis of why they are recruiting you. They want to see, can this guy help my team? They don't think about anything else before that.
Just that.
Can he help my team? Then after that, once they see this guy can help my team, they will look at your academics, because the academics will determine, can you get accepted into their institution? If your academics are not good enough, they will say, okay, he's a good player, but he can't get into my institution. If they are, then they will say, okay, yeah, I'm prepared to give him this amount of scholarship. The video will also help them know whether they can actually trust the person who is sending them the information. Yeah, so once you think of those two things, whether you did drama in high school, whether maybe that will help now on the academic side. But in terms of the football and where your scholarship is going to come from, it's mainly about how you play and how you present yourself.
Oh, okay. And you mentioned you went to the States. You didn't tell us where, which is fine. But I wanted to ask you along those lines, are there certain states you'd recommend a Kenyan to go to apply, maybe to look for an opportunity there as opposed to somewhere else, because perhaps the transition might be easier on them?
So just to give you my background, so I went to Florida initially. That's where my academy was situated. From there, I went to Oral Roberts University, which is in Oklahoma, which is a NCAA Division I school. From there, I had a challenge with, it's a long story. When I was 15, I joined that academy, but I did here locally, I did the IGCSE system, so the British system of education. So I had already completed high school. So when I went there, I was 1 year younger than the people I had completed with. my family was asked whether I should continue with 2 years of high school or I should start university. They said, why doesn't he just try university? And then if he has any struggles, he can go back to high school. So when I was 15, I actually started college classes immediately.
Wow.
So I was going to class with people that were like 2-3 years older than me. But, for me, I just felt like all I had to do was succeed. So, I worked harder than anybody I was in class with. Also, I felt like the education system in the US was not that difficult for me. But maybe it's also because I was really working hard, because I knew that was the one thing that if I didn't do well, I'm coming back to Nairobi. So now once I was in that environment, by the time I was 18, I already had a 2-year degree. I had an associate's degree. So when I moved now to an NCAA school, they classified me as a senior, which means I had 1 year to play. It's a bit complicated, but now once I only had 1 year to play, it meant I had to move if I wanted to continue playing. So I moved to an NAIA school in Mississippi, and then I went to a university called the University of Rio Grande, which was one of the best experiences for me because we won a national championship in my final year. A national championship is basically what every college player wants to win. And I'll never forget it. I won't forget the teammates that were with. We still have a group chat to this day. And it was a great experience. So based on where I was able to play, I would say that, most people think that the US is not competitive when it comes to football, but I can tell you that it is. And it's only getting even more and more competitive, especially because now they're hosting the World Cup. And they have a lot of foreign players. So in my university team, the one that won the national championship, we only had 2 American players. All of the rest were from they were from Brazil, they were from Spain, they were from Holland, they were from the UK. And so it was very competitive. But then also some of the best American players end up going to these NCAA schools, which can also be quite expensive. So I would say that most Kenyans or most Africans who are going to the US, they do need a scholarship. Because if you look at, let's say, the fees for some of these bigger NCAA schools, it's really expensive for an African. So if you need a scholarship, then that means that you need to be better than what they have. For you to be better than what they have, it's probably not going to be a university that can select. Because some of these universities at the moment are selecting from players who are released from academies in the UK, in Europe. Even some of the players I played with were from former academies, past academies. So for them to give you a scholarship, they feel like, I see how this guy is going to come and impact me in his first year. Meaning you're an 18-year-old playing against guys who are 22, 23, and you are better than them. Now, that's not everybody. That's what makes it very competitive. So because they'll need scholarship, most likely they're not going to go to these bigger schools. They're going to go to smaller schools in different places in the US. So the Midwest, less so the South, but mostly the middle of the country. Yeah, that's my experience.
Oh, okay. Finally, what were your prospects like when it comes to being drafted? Did you have an opportunity or?
That's a good question. So another thing that a lot of players are not aware of is when you are outside of Kenya, you are considered a foreign player. There are restrictions on foreign players in many leagues across the world. I mean, even here in Kenya, I believe you're only allowed 5 foreign players per team. That means even if you're coming from Tanzania, you have to be better than the Kenyans that team has access to. Otherwise, it wouldn't make sense for them to try and get you a work permit and spend a lot of money when they can just pick another Kenyan. So that's the same everywhere. So in in the US, one of the challenges is you're only allowed 8 international players per team. Now it's easy to, I would say if you're talented, if you're good enough, it's easy to get on teams when you are still on your student visa. But once you're finished with your student visa, which is what happened to me, you need to get a professional team that is willing to sponsor your work visa, which means you're trying to work in the US. Now, even aside from football, you know how hard it is to work in the US. Of course, you have the benefit of being talented in a sport, but all of my prospects were, I wouldn't say that I was at a level where I'm being recruited by MLS teams or anything like that. But some of these lower league teams, I had played in what they call now as the USL 2. So the team I played in the USL 2, you get selected. I was selected as one of the best players in that region of the US at under 23 level. So when I was in Kansas City, I reached out to many clubs, and I was good enough to at least have the coach listen to me, because I had sent out my CV, I had video, I had everything. But then the question they would ask is, do you have a US passport or a green card? Because that makes the process much easier for them. Without that, it becomes very difficult, because now they see you as a foreign player. So technically, you are competing with every other foreign player. At that time, the best some of the foreign players that were in the US were like Zlatan. So I'm competing now with Zlatan for the positions, for those eight positions, because for them, they see those 8 slots as let's get the best possible players we can. So they're getting, players who've played internationally, that kind of level.
Now your profile comes in.
Now, yeah. So now they're thinking, okay, this guy has played in college. Yes, he's played USL 2. He's played at a good level, but is he better than all these Americans that we have access to? And realistically, I don't think I was. I think I was at the same level, which wasn't good enough for me to. And I went to many different trials. The last trial I went to, the goal was actually not to necessarily play in the US, but to move to another country. And that's when I got an opportunity to play in Finland. That eventually didn't work out. And that's when I was supposed to go back to the US. But I decided now to stick around. Yeah.
Okay. Now you have, I think you're running True Talents, yeah? Mm-hmm. Kenyans know it as an academy, but in different countries, it's called a center. Mm. Everyone talks about development. Mm. It means different to me. It's different to Papa. It can mean different to every other person. Mm. What does it mean to you? And how do you do it at True Talents Academy?
So I think the best way to do it is to think of what do these players, what do these families want to achieve? When you speak with a player, 17, 18, you ask them, okay, what's your dream? Where do you want to play? They will tell you, I want to play for Barcelona. I want to play for Arsenal. I want to play for United. That's their dream. So now the question is, how are the responsibility of academies or these places that these students go is to try and help them to achieve their dreams. Yeah. I feel like one of the challenges we have here in Nairobi is many of these academies know that this is the dream of this player, but are not really helping them towards it because they're not telling them the realities. So they're not giving them the education, and then they're not giving them the environment to which they, even if they may not get to that dream, they're going to get as close as possible. And so I felt when we were starting TTA and we were starting all these programs, how do we make sure that these guys are actually getting what they want, that will get them as close as possible to their dreams? Mm-hmm. So if your dream is to play for Barcelona, how do we make sure that this program that you're in right now is as close to Barcelona as we can make it, and not to compromise on anything? And that's why we try and do all these things that maybe, in fact, it would be no different to any professional team here. Where we train, actually we train with Mathare United, and we have also trained with you, and the environment is similar. Making sure that these guys are training just as consistently as any professional team. Making sure that they have video, making sure that they have all of these things that they need to get as close to their dreams as possible. Mm. I just feel like many academies here are telling these players that they can go and play in Europe, and then they give them an environment where they're training 3 times per week. And realistically, that's never going to happen. Yeah, it's just never going to happen.
Okay. And now that you're a coach, and we are both coaches, you're working for your academy, how do you advise parents on payments? Because a lot of academies now, if you look at the prices, really crazy. Mm. So if I want to bring my kid to your academy, what are you selling to me? What's the value in True Talents that I can't get maybe in a different place?
For me, I think the biggest thing that we offer above and beyond anything is just opportunity. Through the past several years, we've been able to build a network of different opportunities. We've had players who just a few months ago went to South Africa, joined one of our partner academies there. We've had players who've gone to Poland. We've had players who've gone to Romania. I've had players who've gotten soccer scholarships to play in the US, to play in Canada. And that's maybe just by the grace of God, we've been able to have those kinds of connections to help players in that way. But we also have a personal responsibility to create an environment that enables them to access those kinds of opportunities. I think that's the second thing, is the environment. I think it's different in the sense that of these academies that are, require a parent to invest their resources or their finances to join, you have to look at what you're getting. For many of them, you find maybe it's training 3 times per week. It seems like it's just, let this kid enjoy themselves. But we are actually trying to give them an opportunity to chase their dreams. And usually that means that what I've noticed is the commitment in terms of the physical commitment is actually much more than the money commitment. I mean, if you have to be at the training ground 6 times in a week, there is a financial commitment that you're making, but it's also just the effort that you're putting in. And that's more important than even the finances, is that you have a kind of player who is willing to do that. Yeah, so I think that's what makes us slightly different too.
And do you think the player now in Kenya needs to be given everything for him to achieve maybe a higher level compared to the players before who maybe had to work extra hard? Do you think the modern player doesn't work hard? What's your opinion on that?
That's a good question. Wow. Does the modern player work hard in comparison to before?
To the players that played before.
I don't think it's possible to give. If you look at what players have access to in the West, we can't give our players that. I always compare it to selling avocados. I know that sounds different, but you have to think, what is special about my avocado? That when somebody finds an avocado, somebody in France or somewhere in the US, wherever they are, when they look at this avocado that you've given them, and they look at the avocado they have in their country, they say there's something this avocado has that this other avocado does not have. I think that's the only way we can be better. If we try and completely compare ourselves to some of these Western countries, we can't give our players all of that. If you consider some of the things that they're doing in Western countries now, even with things like AI, with things like the technology that they have access to, we can't compete with that. But what I've noticed we can compete with is the desire. You find if an African player, or at least the ones who are trained correctly, when they go outside of this country and they get an opportunity, the player who is in that country is seeing this as just another day. This is Tuesday for them. But this African player is thinking, this is everything I've worked for in my life. I'm more dedicated, I'm more committed. So I think character is a big one that can be different. Another thing is just the athleticism. They always speak about athleticism. If you compare someone like Sadio Mane with somebody who even grew up in Liverpool's academy.
The money of Liverpool or this money of Al Nassr?
Let's talk about when he was Sadio Mane.
Okay.
If you compare him, there's people who grew up in Liverpool's academy. They've come all the way through. And then there's this Sadio Mane who has some of these things he has never even seen before. But when you compare them, you say, this Sadio Mane guy has something that I could never give this. This guy who grows up in Liverpool. So it's that wildness, that it's uncoached. They call it raw talent. And I think that's one thing that we can compete with players on that side with. Okay. But if we try and compare them directly, it would be difficult for us.
Okay, and one last one. What do you look for in a player? Because, or basically, what are your non-negotiables? Before it gets on the pitch, because everyone can kick a ball, everyone can run, but what are your non-negotiables for a player on your team?
For me, I think anybody in TTA would answer the same thing. It's just character. So things like discipline are really important to us. So there's certain values that we have that we need to see in a player. So things like leadership. It's actually listed. So leadership, responsibility, being able to find creative solutions, and then being able to be part of a team or being part of a family. Those are the things that are really important to us. That's what we build our program around. Because as much as you might take a player somewhere, before they represent you on the field, they're going to have to represent you as a person. And they're not representing just themselves. They're representing their country. This might be the only experience of Kenya that person actually ever has, the person who's receiving them. They're representing their family. They're representing our academy. So above and beyond, even if they never step on the field, that coach has to feel like this guy is just a great person. So I think character is just a big thing for me. Yeah.
Okay.
You being what you've been able to achieve with True Talents is really amazing. And with this in mind, right now we are in a place where everybody has a podcast, everybody has a platform, or everyone is trying to grow a platform, everyone is trying to create noise around certain issues, but people are not actually trying to get the attention of the key decision makers. So you're actually a major stakeholder, so are we. And with this in mind, I wanted to ask you, if you could appeal to the federation right now as being someone who is owning and running a private, may call it a private training institution, what are some of the things you would ask them to implement, or how can they help make your life easier? Because I think that's very important.
Yeah, that's a great
What
question.
can they do for you? If Mariga was here right now,
Yeah.
what can he do for you to make your life easy?
I don't think he can. I think he wouldn't be doing it for me. He'd be doing it for the country. And also, I used to work at the Kenya Academy of Sport. I used to work at the Ministry of Sports from about 2019 to 2021. I worked at the Ministry of Sports at Kenya Academy of Sports in talent development. So my responsibility was to try and create programs that would help students, help young players basically develop, not only in football, but in other sports as well. So I have some experience with what needs to happen on a national level. And what I feel is that, there are many countries that simply have a system that would create a professional player. In Kenya, we don't have those kinds of systems. So you find, let's say, if you go to Morocco, if you go to Tunisia, these are teams that we played with at under 20 level. You find that whether it's done by the government or whether it's done by private institutions that are supported by the government, a player at 14, if you are very good and you are in Homa Bay, there is a selection process there. You are taken to a place now where everything is catered for you. You stay there, you're considered a special talent. You are the one who's going to represent Kenya at under 15 level. You and all the other players who have been selected from different places. You stay there, everything is taken care of. That happens at 16, 17, 18. You can't tell me if the way that Kenyans play when they're 11 and 12, if that is carried on from 13 to 18, you can't tell me we wouldn't be able to compete against some of the best nations in Africa. I think we would be. Just because you're giving that 14-year-old, 15-year-old, 16-year-old access to international competition. They're training 5-6 times per week. They have good coaching. They have good facilities. At the moment, we just don't have that. We don't have a system of development. And even when I was at CAS, Kenya Academy of Sports, I created programs that would have enabled that. But I feel sometimes the interest is never aligned. The people who are empowered are not connected to the ground, and then the people who are connected to the ground are not empowered. So it becomes a bit of a challenge. But I think that is the obvious way in which we can help. If we just have, and in fact, they used to have a center of excellence at under 15 level. Some of the players actually who played in under 20 were from that same center of excellence. If they had stayed together, from 16, 17, 18, I think we would be able to compete with Morocco, with Tunisia, with Nigeria. If we're able to compete with them now, just by doing nothing, there's no help for these players at 17.
True.
There's nothing we're doing. So imagine if there was something we're doing, even on the women's side. We are so good by doing nothing. Imagine if they had a place that they, from 14, 15, 16, I think would be the best in Africa.
You know what's funny? I stay in Ngong. So I just rode down Pole Pole, came using Nakuma Junction. and I got here to the studio. You know the craziest thing?
Uh-huh.
I didn't see anybody playing any sport or anywhere. Just think about that, you guys, for a second. I haven't seen. The only place I saw sports today was we went with him to watch tennis at Parkland Sports Club. But bro, like in your car or on your bike or on your feet, I didn't see anyone. Just think about that. Nobody, nowhere.
Yeah.
Just being honest.
It's true. It's true.
Yeah, I didn't see you. Have you seen anyone?
No.
And you, Kimathi?
No, I haven't. I didn't see any. Well, aside from us, we trained this morning.
Even me, I had training in the morning. So
You don't see it.
Yeah.
yeah, maybe it's the country. Maybe it's not the people in power.
I mean, if you go to Brazil right now, you just go. Let's say we go from here to the beach. I'm sure we'll see guys playing ball. Old guys, young guys, kids.
Yeah.
Here, there's nowhere. If Ray and I say after this show, we're going to have a kickabout. If we don't have 3,000 bob, where are we going to play?
we can't play. Yeah, we need grounds that
spaces.
are free for guys to play in.
Yeah, not just football. We need tennis courts, swimming pools, nothing. Where, bro? Where have you seen anyone playing?
Yes, it's
Also, Kimathi, you've spoken about the under-17s. What did you think about the last tournament for the under-20s? What should we have done better? How did you rate the performance? Maybe of the technical bench, of the team? What did you think?
if you consider that we have done nothing, then that is actually they have actually outdone themselves, even just by being there. Because I mean, if you consider countries like Morocco, Tunisia, they do have those kinds of setups where from 14 to 17, a player is incubated, they're helped along the journey, they're playing competitively, they're doing all the right things. And it's no surprise that now when they get to under 20 level, these guys have already been playing, at the professional level. They've had the development at the youth level. So of course they're going to play at a higher level than us. So for me, it wasn't a surprise. In fact, I thought they outdid themselves. Yeah.
Okay. And for a parent, for a player, how would you advise them out of your experience as a coach? Because we meet so many parents who want their kids to play. We meet so many kids who have a passion, have a dream. What would be your one advice to them?
I think there's something that is spiritually beneficial to anybody, regardless whether you're a kid or a young adult or whatever. But when you are able to actually move in the direction of your dreams, it gives you something that I don't think anything else can give you. Just that sense of purpose, that sense of joy, that sense of feeling as if you mean something, that you have a purpose. So I think the first thing is, if anybody has that dream, if you have a young person who has a dream of wanting to play football or do anything, I think the first thing is just to understand them, to listen to them and say, okay, this is your dream. Okay, I understand that is extremely difficult, whatever roadblocks might be, but I'm going to try and help you. And I think that would mean the world to any young person. And then now, once you've dedicated yourself to helping them, discover some of these realities, learn about, okay, what does it take to actually get them to this place? Realistically, what are their chances? How do we help them? And I think from there now we can find creative solutions of how to help them in the best way.
Okay. I'm saying that because the reason we started this show is to try and help the guys who are playing under 9 now to be able to grow up knowing I don't have to play because of the salary. I can play without the money. I just need to chase my dream. Of course, the money is important. We're going to get it on the way. Yeah. So we are doing a lot of mentorship programs here together. And parents, we need to be able to be in the same, do the same things, have the same voice. Because at the end of the day, once the daughter of the son comes home from training, they spend nearly 3 sessions with me. So they spend an hour at home. So it's very important to be able to work on the mental side, work on them, trying to support them. Every kid in this country needs to be supported, whether it's facilities, whether it's financially, we just need to be there for them. Because I think we have talent, but we need to be better in developing them.
I agree.
So you're doing a good job, man.
Thanks.
There's an interesting, I like controversial opinions because they're the ones that actually either effect change or at least get the conversation started. I think there's a problem we have here in Kenya whereby I don't even have to use football as an example. If you go to the world of motorsport, if you look at like your Max Verstappen's, Max is not Max because of Max. Max is Max because of his dad. The issue we have in Kenya is you have all these parents with all this money who are trying to feed their children's dreams based on what they see on TikTok or Instagram, but they don't have any in-depth knowledge about what the undertaking that they want to try and achieve. If you think about it, Jos Verstappen he made it to Formula One, drove a few seasons and quit. It's no surprise his son is the best. The guy knows how the thing works from the bottom all the way to the top.
Yeah.
The problem we have in Kenya is you have so many parents, like I was telling Ray here earlier, if a parent is coming to talk to you about taking the child to Europe or America or wherever, already financially, he's preconceived an idea based on something he saw on his phone. So he's coming with a figure in mind. He's coming to negotiate. So he's thinking you're going to ask for 300K to take the kid abroad for a month. Not realizing, in reality, if this kid is going to have any chance of competing with those people abroad, you have to make, like you said, you have to bring the environment. We can't replicate the environment, but we can do something close. So it means if I was sitting with a parent right now, I would ask for 5 million for 2 years because that is realistic.
Yeah.
I can cover the child's nutrition, equipment. We also have to take this kid there to Spain to look at Kylian Mbappe so that the guy can understand what it is we need to do from here. But here now you have all these coaches, like Ray is saying, setting up academies. We have an oversaturated system with all these academies that take kids for a week, a month. But what's the end goal? Where is our end result? And I feel like you coaches can't say it because you guys are in the business. I can say it because I have nothing to lose. I can appeal to our parents. You guys, please do your homework. Coach Kimathi, Coach Ray can't do everything for you. The same way you have your 9 hours where you're paid or wherever it is you look for money. These guys can only focus on your son. But the outside of your son, there is the internal and external environment. We all need help. Do you think like maybe we need to sit, we actually need to have a seminar, all these parents, we need to go and hire KICC for like a week. All these parents come sit down and we sell them tickets, man, and we tell them the truth. Because just think about it. Imagine that undertaking. You want to take your son, Kimathi, to FC Barcelona. FC Barcelona's Instagram has, 100 million followers. Of those 100 million, half are women, half are men. If we do a further sense, there's basically like 50 million kids who want to play in those 11 positions. Bro, like if you ever sat down and thought about that, that is insane. Imagine the work we need to undertake. So do you think like maybe we should also have programs where we educate our parents or our, let me call them donors, because now even your rich uncle to get you out of the house can decide to take you to talents to train. And he thinks you can go play for Liverpool. But does he actually understand what it takes? You mentioned here some very key things, going out there and being exposed. You said it changes your mentality, the way you think. Because us guys are here at home. Most of us have never been on a plane. Let's be honest, majority of our players. Imagine if the guy just went and even stood at the Bernabeu, like when it's empty, and he's like, I want to play here. But do you really have what it takes to play here? Because I feel like there's a lot of, we're really massaging our egos. You know, we're telling our parents, you don't worry, bring Jaden here. I got you, man.
Yeah.
The guy, when you look at him. So there was a question in there, so I got carried away. But my question for you was, do you think we actually need to put in as much effort in educating the parents as the players? Because most of us, ourselves included, are so focused on the player. But what about the parent?
Yeah, no, I think I agree with you 100%. In fact, when even when I was developing, there's no education for parents, so it was almost left alone to the parents. And that's the one thing that I always felt, even when we started TTA, it was involving the families as much as possible. So we have parents meetings every single month. And then we started this thing called Parents Masterclasses. So right now we have a WhatsApp group with about almost 500 parents who are in that group. And every month we create something for them so that they learn. Because I noticed for us to develop, for us to help these students in the best way, we also need to have their families understand what they're doing. And what we are trying to do to help them, and also understanding how they can also help their son or daughter. So during those masterclasses, now we explain to them. So we talk about why is it not the best idea to go to Spain if you want to be a professional footballer right now? Why is it not the best idea to go to the UK? What opportunities actually do exist, for these players? I think that's one thing that we are trying to do. But I noticed many academies don't do enough of that. They don't, and I also don't blame them, because I've noticed many of them are not aware of the system. You find like many academies have success stories. They talk about Kina Wanyama, they'll talk about Mariga, they'll talk about all these players. But the problem with a 1 in a million story is it can't be replicated. You can't, if somebody goes from Nairobi and then goes on to play, in the Premier League, you have to think to yourself, okay, how replicable is that? What did they do to get there? And then if it is replicable, let's start teaching people on how it can be done. But the reality is, some of these players who actually find themselves in those situations, even they don't know how they got there. So how do you now explain that to somebody? Many of these club owners also don't know what does it, whether it's a scholarship, whatever it is, how do you even attain that? So many of them don't know. So if a parent actually asked them enough questions, they wouldn't be able to answer them. So I don't really blame the parents. I blame the industry, because we're the ones who care about this sport. How do we educate not just the parents but everybody about what does it take, what opportunities actually do exist? Because for us, it's not about charging the players a lot of money to go to Spain or whatever. It's trying to find what is the best opportunity for you as a player. What's the most efficient way to get you there? And also, what is the cheapest way to get you there? That is why we don't end up sending players to places like the UK. We don't send players to Spain. We've never had these expensive trips where you go for Gothia Cup or anything. We try and make it so that, it's possible. Yeah. So that's what I would say.
I remember the first trip I went to the UK with the Ligindogo. I think it was 2010 or 2009. We got there. Obviously, those trips are expensive, so you expected to have it was not based on merit. It was purely who can pay. And you're expecting, okay, when you're young, there's this pressure to go. So your family raise the money, you go for the trip. And then, first of all, you're not even enough. You need to be maybe 15, 20. You're like 7 guys. So what happens next? You get, like, if it was under 13, it was under 13. So you go and you get like the remaining 5 players from under 9. Then the parents, who obviously for some families, they're not able to, your parents can't travel with you. So you've gone as a team. And then you find the first communication, Kinare wamechezaje? Wamepigwa 15, but it's getting better. You're like, when you're young, you don't think about those things. But when you're older, you're like, it's getting better. You left here to be hammered 15-1.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think you're right. Those are some of the challenges you have. And I also think I have to give you coaches credit. When I was 15, 16, there weren't many young guys like us even attempting to do what both of you are doing. So we have to give you your flowers. And I think, things will only get better from here. I just have one more question for you, then I'll hand it over to Coach Ray. The draft information, what you talked to us about, how your experience was completing your education and then that affecting your ability to be drafted. Had you known this information earlier, do you think it would have changed any of the decisions you made?
Yeah, I think hindsight is, actually I don't regret anything. Because as much as I moved universities a lot, each time I moved, the players I was playing with, the experiences that I had were also better. So Yeah, for me, I would say I don't regret anything, and maybe I think the only thing you can do is pay it forward. If there's something I didn't know during my time as a player that I can give to players now, I just have to try and give it to them. So that's why it's so important for us to explain to these players what are the best countries to go to if you want to play professionally, what opportunities do exist, because otherwise they're just in the darkness, and then they end up making some decisions that can affect them and their families.
Okay. I think, guys, thank you for watching. Still, we are recruiting for our team. So if you want to come over, help us, support us. Thank you for watching the show, Coach. Thank you so much.
No, thank you for having me, man. I think this is a great platform. I watch a lot of the episodes, so they're very insightful, by the way.
Thank you.
And not many people are presenting it in this way. Yeah, I listen to a lot of podcasts, so I really appreciate you guys for what you're doing.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Coach.
Cheers.